Well, here's something you don't see every day, a movie-based NES game that doesn't absolutely stink. Gremlins 2: The New Batch was released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1990 and loosely follows the events of the film. The game was released by Sunsoft, so you know it's probably pretty good. The movie actually lends itself to a video game fairly easily. In the film, the old man that owns Gizmo passes away, and Gizmo ends up in a Manhattan high-rise where there are these scientists that try to do experiments on him. Of course, Gizmo ends up getting water spilt on him, and more evil Mogwai are born and eventually turn into gremlins. But this time, some of the gremlins end up getting extreme mutations. Vegetable gremlins, a gremlin made of electricity, a hybrid bat gremlin. This gave the developers something else to work with, besides just having Gizmo fighting a bunch of gremlins that all look the same. You take control of Gizmo, and the gameplay consists of top-down action inside the Manhattan high-rise with all sorts of enemies to deal with. Mines, bats, giant tomatoes, and of course all sorts of gremlins with various abilities. They also threw in tons of hazards like bottomless pits, spikes, moving platforms, and lava. Who designed this building? You eventually start to find weapons upgrades, and you can find temporary help from items like the pogo stick. The action is all smooth and the soundtrack is easily one of the best for the console. They even went all Ninja Gaiden and added in some nifty cutscenes to flesh out the story. They're a little on the short side, but well done. The levels are mostly linear, but there are some branching pathways now and then, and you'll want to explore as much as you can so that you can find the shops, which look like these little doorways. You go in to find the ghost of Gizmo's previous owner with some various wares to purchase, and here's where it gets tricky. You only get one chance to buy an item per level. Once you buy an item, the store vanishes. What item would you like to buy? Yes? Once Gizmo buys an item, the store disappears and you can't buy anything again until you find the shop in the next level. Lather, rinse, repeat. The in-game currency consists of these crystals that look like orbs. You find these all over the place by defeating enemies. I found myself racking up tons of these, but then you only get one chance to actually buy an item. Your options usually consist of a balloon, an extra life, a heart, or occasionally a power canister. The balloons are actually fairly helpful. If you fall into a hole, the balloon automatically picks you up, and then you've got 5 seconds to float around and find a safe spot to land. Extra lives are self-explanatory, and hearts not only refill your energy, but they give you an extra heart container. The power canister gives you a multi-shot power-up that lets you shoot in 3 directions. Unfortunately, the enemies never drop hearts, but they drop plenty of crystals. My issue with this is that the game's difficulty spikes pretty hard after you get through the first level. These levels are typically cramped pathways with pits or spikes in all directions. Gizmo doesn't move super fast either, but the enemies all spaz out all over the place, so oftentimes it's simply not possible to get through an area without taking at least some damage. Then you've got these awkward jumps. Check this out. What the? Sometimes it's easier to just fall into a pit on purpose and use a balloon to let all your troubles float beneath you. There's also plenty of cheap blind jumps where you can't really see what you're getting into. Then as soon as you make the jump, there's an enemy there you can't avoid. You don't replenish hearts between stages either. My point is, since the enemies never drop hearts, you'll constantly be begging for a heart, and by the time you stumble across one of these shops, you may have to waste your chance on a heart rather than getting the all-too-important power canister. But odds are you may want the power canister, especially for the boss fights. It's a dilemma that you'll constantly be dealing with as the challenge skyrockets in the later stages. The game is fairly short, but you'll probably have to repeat the levels at least a few times until you figure out the patterns and where everything is at so you can make it all the way through. You may also want to master the first couple of levels so you can get the better power-ups when you visit the shops. Luckily, the game has a generous continue and password system, making it simple to pick up where you left off. It may seem like I'm complaining about the difficulty, but really, it's not a deal breaker. Just be ready for the challenge, and it's worth trying because the graphics are quite stellar. The color palette is a little repetitive and drab, but they did an excellent job with the details on the enemies as well as the level interiors and the cutscenes. The sprites are huge and everything just looks great. And I mentioned the soundtrack before, but it really is one of the best for any 8-bit system. Every track in this one is a winner. Not to mention controlling Gizmo is a breeze. The challenge is real, but it's fair because the play control is responsive and easy to master. It's up to you, the player, to just be better at the game. The enemies don't respawn either, so once you clear out an area, you can catch your breath for a sec. The boss fights are also very well done, and although they are difficult in their own right, not frustratingly so, it just seems like they take a ton of damage, so you'll have to really memorize the patterns and execute the plan to win the day. Your reward is the feeling of accomplishment and the next cutscene. The game is on the cheaper end too, and usually only goes for like 15 bucks, maybe less. A lot of times it gets overlooked since it's a movie game, so if you see this one at a garage sale or flea market, definitely grab it. It's one of the better NES titles you'll find, and certainly one of the best games ever based on a movie. What do you think? Did you play this one growing up or discover it recently? Hey, I do this sort of thing all the time on my channel. If you enjoyed this, feel free to leave a like as it does help, and here's some other videos that you might enjoy. You can also subscribe for new videos each week, and if you haven't already done so, make sure to click the bell notification on the front page because otherwise YouTube has a funny habit of not letting you know when I've uploaded a new video. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.